I was invited by my next door neighbor for a yoga class. I think in the middle of a downward dog, she says, okay, now think about what you're passionate about. What brings you joy? And I was stumped. I was completely and utterly stumped because I'm like, I live for my kids and getting through each day. I don't know who I am. I have no idea what brings me joy. And I joked and I said, you mean people actually know that? And I realized that other people did. It is so true that we are all on a journey and we're in different parts. Some of us don't even, as you said, don't even know that you're on a journey.
Right.
You don't even know that you've got these voices in your head.
Yeah.
You just don't feel quite 100%, but you don't know why. And
So in the whole anti-stigma, we've kind of categorized that it has to be a mental illness. And most of us are not actually dealing with a mental illness. We're just dealing with life.
Right.
And you are an executive coach, so you work specifically with successful people.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's start with your name and maybe the name of your business and what you do.
My name's Suzanne Faber, and I'm an executive health and wellness coach. I hadn't put life in there, but I realized that the whole thing is life coaching. How do you make your life that you live more joyful, more rewarding, more healthy? Just live to the best is what I really am all about.
Good. And tell us something about you personally that might connect with people.
I have done both. I have been an executive. I have 4 children, one of whom has special needs, and 2 of my youngest got really, really sick, so I ended up having to stop working and stay home. And I don't necessarily view executive as just somebody that goes out and earns a lot of money.
Okay.
But you also, when you're running your own home and you're doing all the rest of it, you've still got a lot of stress. And you're managing a lot of different things.
Yeah. I like how you said, you know, I haven't added this word yet, but it really is this life coaching that, you know, we're all on this journey and sometimes we need help in getting there.
I used to think, well, I do think that people sometimes roll their eyes at the idea of life coaching. But the reality is, exactly, we are all on a journey and we all want to live the best life that we can because the older you get, the shorter time you realize that you have. And so why not make it the best it can be?
Right.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about being a special needs mom and how that, you know, kind of gives you some authority.
I will try not to tear up on this subject. So talking about stress, which is a big piece of what I like to talk about. My son is now 21. He graduated high school when he was 18. So it took me a full 6 months to even be able to talk about his school experience without tearing up. The idea of anybody mentioning an IEP and I would tear up.
It's like a trigger word.
Yeah, it really is. And that fight or flight that I felt that I was in for 15 years of his life, just trying to fight for everything that he has. I was on a conversation leading a group today and we talked about if you knew then what you knew now, you wouldn't worry so much. And there's a piece of me that looks back and says, if I'd have known everything was going to be okay, maybe I wouldn't have had to fight so hard.
Yeah, I remember those IEP meetings. And my son had a progressive disorder, and so we'd make these goals, and then he wouldn't meet them because it's progressive. And I just always felt attacked by the people that were leading the meeting. Yeah,
people think being in a room with a whole bunch of executives is stressful. It is nothing compared to being in an IEP meeting and you're one person surrounded by probably 15 teachers and various other people, and you're trying to make a point for your kid and they're trying to make a point for, I mean, it doesn't need to be adversarial, but it often
feels that way. Well, because as a mom, we want to be perfect. We want to be a good mom. We want, and you're basically telling me where I'm not being a good mom.
Well, and we know our kids better.
Right.
And what they are truly capable of versus perhaps what they can see in the school. It's really difficult for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's my husband, I think, says I'd rather go have a tooth pulled with no pain meds than sit through an IEP meeting.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's fun stuff.
But that really gives you that life experience. Tell us, other things in your life that have given you the experience.
I think, like many women who've had kids, I literally got to the place I was invited by my next door neighbor for a yoga class. And I think in the middle of a downward dog, she says, okay, now think about what you're passionate about. What brings you joy? And I was stumped. I was completely and utterly stumped because I'm like, I live for my kids and getting through each day. Ooh, I don't know who I am. I have no idea what brings me joy. And I joked and I said, you mean people actually know that? And I realized that other people did. But since I've started talking about that, I realize a lot of people, and it's not just women, a lot of men are so focused on, I've got to be successful, I've got to bring in the money, I've got to do this, I've got to do that they've lost what brings them joy.
Yeah.
Life is just a grind, and it doesn't need to be a grind.
Yeah. And I think we could probably identify that as part of the problem that your coaching is helping with.
Absolutely. During COVID, and COVID is a great example of being able to live through something really hard, but to be able to look back and say, you know what, there were some pluses. The fact that we do so much on Zoom now, whereas we didn't before, is a plus. I mean, there are pluses that came out of it. But early on, I did this program about finding your purpose through the church I was going to at the time. And it was the beginning of a huge journey for me. At one point, we had to find photographs that we felt that spoke to us. And we narrowed it all down to one photo that really spoke to us. And mine is ridiculous. It's of this big, not multicolored, red fish with all these fins, and it's just stands out in the pack. And it was my individuality that it just seemed to speak to me, that it's like, you know what, you don't have to be like everybody else. You are unique, and follow your dreams and be you, and good things will happen. Yeah. And so...
And was that the moment you knew that you were going to start helping people through coaching?
I've always been in the healthcare field. That's always been my passion, but it was more on the academic side. And I've known for a long time. I went and got my first certification in 2010 as a health coach, and so I've been dabbling in it. One of my first jobs in healthcare, I saw a gentleman talking about health, and he made the analogy of, or the discussion of, you choose to live a joyous, healthy life, or you can choose to live a long, slow death. And ouch. It was brutal, but at the same time, I'm like, wow. And I think since that point, which was probably 91 or 2, I've thought about the choices that we make now and how that impacts our health moving forward, and what 65-year-old wants to be in so much pain that they can't walk upstairs and they can't do things. And the idea of you can't control everything, but what you can impact, embrace and understand that you have choices to make too. Yeah. And I guess drinking a 6-pack of soda now probably isn't going to help you live that vibrant life as you age.
Yeah. Well, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about this is really the difference between coaching and maybe going to a licensed professional in mental health, where they're trained to treat disease, trained to treat illness, may or may not have the life experience. I haven't met a life coach or a coach that isn't doing it because they figured it out themselves. Like it's their journey. and now they want to share
Right.
that. I don't know how much I've been able to share about my story, but that's how I created the Mentally Strong Method. I had all these degrees, and when I got into the thick of raising 7 kids, losing my son being diagnosed with a rare disorder, then my daughter, trauma after trauma, and none of that was helpful. None of
Right.
that,
None of all that training, all those degrees.
It's like now you have to figure out how to practically apply it to life.
Yep.
So, and that's how I created the Mentally Strong Method that I teach now, and it's based on that cognitive behavioral, like the way you think impacts the choices that you make,
Right.
which impacts your mood, and they're all connected. And what do you do when life is not, going your way? How do you keep making those choices and making choices that are healthy for you all around?
How do you stay mentally strong?
Yeah. So when both of us, I think we're teaching, very similar things: mental fitness, mental strength.
Right.
Where do you see this being the biggest need in the community, or just with people in general?
I think that's a multi-pronged answer. First of all, I would say people are very stressed. I think the world is literally on fire, and you listen to the news, and it just creates anxiety, so much anxiety. And then coming back to the way that if you're constantly processing everything as a negative, you are just going to feel awful, and you're going to feel stressed, and it's hard to get through the day. So I think I would probably say, in a nutshell, I think our stress level is the number one thing that I want
and
to
everyone
be.
Can identify
Everybody,
with that.
yes, everybody is stressed at some level. You can go to see a coach, and I've been doing this, and a coach can help you make different choices, etc. But what I realized, I kind of hit a barrier, which is unless you understand why you're so stuck deep inside, you can have all the coaching about making choices, but you won't actually be able to make the change unless you understand what's holding you back. And that's where, when I got introduced to positive intelligence and mental fitness, I realized that was the missing piece. It's how do we all have different things that are holding us back, that are in that mental chatter that we don't even realize is going on. And if we can address that and shine the light on it and help you to say, no, wait a minute, Mr. Judge, who's telling me I can't do this because I'm an idiot, and why do you think you can do that? Your judge is not telling you the truth. And if you can quiet that judge and say, you know what, I can do that. I am worthy.
I'd love
so much you
to
can
show
do.
you a thought map, because that's just the way we get it all out on paper. But I wanted to make sure we had time to really dive into you have a very specific 10-week program that you take people through. Tell us first about this inner saboteur.
So we really have two parts of our brains. We have the one where kind of a lot of the negativity kind of sits, and within that we all have a judge that tells us what we can and can't do, talks to us about other people. We judge other people, but we also judge the circumstances we're in, and we say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I've got this test done. I'll be happy when I've got this presentation done. I'll be happy when my kids have grown up, or whatever. And so it's recognizing that. And then there are 9 other saboteurs that have been identified. And let me just backtrack one second. Positive intelligence came out of a confluence of positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, and kind of the physical fitness piece. And it's the idea that if you want to grow your muscles, you have to exercise your muscles. If you want to grow your mental fitness, you have to exercise your mental fitness. And then they looked at all sorts of different things to try and blend it down into a handful of characteristics that can be used to describe everything. It's the same as what we've done with colors, that you can take all the colors out there and narrow them down to 3 base colors, of which you can make everything else. And that's kind of where the idea of the saboteurs came in. So there are things like the hyperachiever, who's just grown up feeling like you've got to achieve something to be worthy.
Right.
There's the hyper-rational. Unless everything makes absolute sense, then I'm not going to go down that road. There's the controller. I need to control my environment so that I'm safe. And if I can't be safe, then I'm anxious and I'm uncomfortable. And there are 10 of these that we kind of walk you through so you can identify the ones in you. And then once you understand, okay, so you put your hand up for being a hyperachiever. So you'll get stressed when you're not feeling like you're achieving something. And I suspect you have a hard time sitting down, relaxing, and turning off your brain. But what people don't know is the more relaxed you can be about what you need to get done, the more you'll get done.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of...
And a lot, just insight. You know, it took me 20 years of working on myself to just know exactly, yep, that's my saboteur. And I know, you know, sometimes when I feel down, I'll be like, it's because I'm not productive today, which is okay, right?
Yes.
So I can move through that pretty quickly.
Yes.
But we don't teach it anywhere in our culture.
Nope.
Right?
No.
So you know, you took several classes, you've had experience, you've been able to do that. That's how I got to where I am too, like figuring out, you know, just don't stop learning about yourself and other, you know, resources and stuff. So that's exciting.
It is shocking in many ways how little we know about the impact of the way that we think.
Yeah.
And what it does to us.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So tell us about your why. This is kind of a common in the self-development world, but not everybody thinks about, you know, what is my why? And then how do you help people figure that out?
So my why really comes from, in my saboteurs, I'm a pleaser. I want to make everybody happy. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. I want to make everybody happy. And I knew I wanted to coach because I wanted to make people feel better, and I'm passionate about living in a healthy way and feeling good. And then as I started doing that, I realized that people were getting stuck. And I'm not in a position to go to other countries and make a difference, but this is a difference that I can make to people that are around me. And honestly, my view is if I can teach one person to see life from a positive lens and they teach somebody else, what an incredible ripple effect we can have. And right now with the news the way that it is, if I can teach people to say, okay, I can't impact what's going on in Israel, but I can impact this person and this person and this person to look at things in a healthy way and positive. And then if that can, you know, it's like a positive movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm part of the positive movement.
Yes, absolutely.
So you asked about how does that help other people's whys? I think taking time to step back and understand at the end of your life, what do you want to look back and say, oh my God, I did this. This is what I really wanted. I made a difference here, or I was passionate about this and I did it. That's a gift. Yeah. And I think getting off the kind of the rat race, the hamster wheel, to be able to reflect on what difference you like to make and what's meaningful to you.
And how do you help specifically mothers do that? Because our innate is, you know, our child is number one. Yeah. Right? And, you know, many women are choosing to work as well as running their household, and it's overwhelming. It is a period of time in your life that's can be very chaotic.
Yes.
So what kind of things would you do with someone who is like in the midst of that?
So it's interesting because with my other passion is special needs, a whole bunch of mums that are just frazzled beyond belief. And it is one of the very simple techniques that we do is just rubbing your fingers together. We call these PQ reps. And just focusing.
You have to do both at the same time?
Nope, you can just do one hand, you can do both. But it is taking 10 seconds to switch off the negative side of your brain and just be in the moment and feel the ridges on your fingertips is enough in just 10 seconds to calm the brain enough, to slow you down enough to say, it's okay.
That's so much better than the thought stopping where you have to hurt yourself.
Right. And the research will show that if you can do, the reason my course is 10 weeks is that if you do PQ reps throughout the day and you do it religiously for 8 weeks, you can see the difference on MRI scans. So for busy moms, it's teaching, it's really getting to what is it that you want to be achieving at the end of your day. Talking about if you're working and you're running a household, where are your priorities? Really, maybe when they step back, they don't want to work, they need more help. And if none of that is possible, they're working because they have to. It is understanding what's the 20% that they have to do that's going to get the 80% bang for their buck. And then teaching them just to slow down. And then there's a great phrase of, the whole idea of you've got to put your mask on yourself. You can't see the spinach in your own teeth. So you've got to have sometimes somebody else to shine the light on how stressed you are and help walk you through just simple ways of taking a moment before you get so burnt out.
Yeah, and we talk about happiness and finding your happiness. And when I was looking at the outline of your 10 weeks, they, very specifically helping people find that happiness. And the year before I turned 50, I spent the whole year like trying to figure out what actually makes me happy. So we talked about the high achiever, and yes, I do enjoy being productive.
Right.
But you can't be, your whole worth can't be on that. And what do I truly find, where do I truly find happiness? And it took me a whole year after being an empty nester.
Right, that's hard.
And mothers that are in the midst of it and don't have a lot of time to try to figure that out. But it's so important because oftentimes people will say, go get your nails done or go do this. But if that doesn't fill your cup, for me, the nails is just another
thing
responsibility.
I have to do. Like exercise, yes.
Right, like exercise. And people will give these kind of advice of maybe what works for them.
Right.
But it's so important to find what actually fills your cup. So how do you help people find that?
Well, one of the things is coming back to the judge and I'll be happy when.
I love
it
that.
Is teaching us to live in the moment. And this autumn has been a great example. The leaves have been incredible. How much time do we spend when we're driving or out walking really looking at a tree and seeing that half the tree, the leaves are still green and maybe a quarter are orange and a quarter are red. And when you do that, you just feel the joy bubbling up inside you. So it's understanding that happiness isn't the big things. It is living in the moment and being able to appreciate every moment. I want to come back to mums, and it's very, very stressful. But what I have learned through this process on how to interact with my kids has changed my relationship with each of my kids so much for the better. And my 21-year-old still lives at home, and he gets very stuck in negative And it's so easy when you're so busy to be quick and short. But there's...
And this is your special needs?
This is my special needs son. But if I can take a moment and just look him deep in the eye and really connect with him, that is so much more powerful than even sitting watching a movie with him for 2 hours.
Right.
Just that real connection. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it's so meaningful for the kids. And obviously as a mother, it's amazing. Perfect. So there's a lot that we can do that's very simple, just to connect.
Yeah.
So
as I was reading your outline, this I don't know anything about, the sage brain.
The sage brain.
Tell us about that.
So we talk a lot about the negative side. So the other side of the brain, maybe more the right side of the brain, we have the ability to build our sage muscles. And you could think of it as the Jedi versus Darth Vader. Okay. You're really working on your inner Jedi. You're building those muscles to be able to step back and say, okay, so I failed my driving test. That's not the end of the world. What did I need to learn from this experience? Okay, yeah, so that's okay. I'll go do it better next time. It's rather than judging yourself, it's using discernment. It's saying, okay, maybe I messed up. I could do this better. So yeah, I'll go do that better. Not, I'm stupid because I didn't do this, but okay, I can do that better. It's seeing the gift in situations, and then using empathy for yourself, empathy for others.
Rewind, empathy for self does not come innate for mothers.
So when I was going through the course, the next week's going to be empathy. I'm like, I've got empathy in the bag, no problem. And then the first thing they start talking about is empathy for self, and I'm like, oh. Yeah, I see I've got a lot to learn about empathy for self.
Yeah.
One of the magical things that we do is have you look at a photograph of your younger self before kind of your saboteurs really took hold, and to describe how you see yourself back when you were 2 or 3. And it's so empowering because that's your inner self. That's who you really are, is this glorious, funny or sassy or curious person that changes over time. And it's very helpful to say, you know what, I am amazing. Look at this being that I was then. And it increases your ability to have empathy for yourself, but also, and this definitely helps in relationships, to be able to see your partner as perhaps who they were when they were 2 or 3, and realize that they've got their own saboteurs, and being able to have a discussion around it. That is not blameful, but curious. And curiosity is another piece of kind of that sage brain. Okay, so what's really going on here? Before you judge, you ask questions.
Well, and I love the way you say before the saboteurs took over.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And saboteurs are not a bad thing. They're a survival mechanism for many of us. But what happens with the saboteurs is it goes too far. So there's a great example of somebody asking, well, aren't saboteurs a good thing, and aren't you supposed to feel pain? And yes, pain plays a very valuable role. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you need to know that that is hot, so you remove your hand. So being a hyperachiever is a great thing, but it's when we get stuck in
no insight into why we're doing that.
Yes. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. ruminating on, I forgot to do this, I need to do that, I need to do the other, you're getting self-stuck in that saboteur mode. You need to switch to sage, which will say, oh, okay, yeah, I need to handle that. All right, I'll remember that and put it outside, and then you go back to sleep.
Yeah.
rather than getting stuck in it. So
yeah, I love what you're doing. Tell us, just as the audience, if they've gotten to this point, they're definitely interested in what you do. What can someone receive from taking your program?
So I think I like to talk to whoever wants to start and kind of get an idea of what are their goals. I think my goal when I honestly first went through this was to not beat myself up so much when I couldn't get to everything. And so it's really talking about kind of what is it that you want to achieve, and then teaching you the skills to be able to switch from that negative self-talk, create new neural pathways, so that when you come up to a situation that perhaps threw you for a loop before, all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, I can handle this. It's like having the ability to, training to physically climb a mountain. You're mentally able to really handle all the things that life throws at you. But in particular, for an individual, it's really what is it that they, in their wildest dreams, would like to be able to do, and then walk them through what's holding them back, how to get into their positive sage brain, and then how does that then impact what is it that they really want to do. Because until you can get through that bit, you can't achieve the other bit. And so I'm still learning every day. I think we all are.
And we're so in line. I'd love if you're willing to, we also do a show called Demonstrate the Process, where we actually do the Mentally Strong Method on you.
Oh, love that.
And, you know, it's so in line with what you're doing and you're teaching. It's just another practical tool to add in there. But this has been great. I'm so glad you came out. I know there's a lot of stress going on in your life today, and you still made it here. So
I was normally, like 2 years ago, this would have made me nervous to come do this. Today I was very much in sage, very excited, because I'm really passionate about what you and I both are doing to help people find their passions, feel less stress, live their best self.